everyone, and welcome back to the kitchen. I have another Christmas baking for beginners for you, and today I'm going to be making a Christmas classic, and that is gingerbread cookies. The specific recipe I found is called my favorite gingerbread men recipe, but we might be making other things than just men. Now, I don't have much experience making gingerbread cookies, and this could potentially be more of an intermediate recipe than a beginner recipe, but we're going to see. The main thing is you will need a lot of time, and this could potentially be a 2-day video depending how things go. It's currently almost 11 a.m. Once I've mixed the dough, it needs minimum of 3 hours to chill. The woman who wrote the recipe did say she leaves it all the way overnight, but I don't think I'm going to go that far. But I need to give it ample time to chill. Then once they've baked, you've got to let them cool before decorating. So it all just depends how the day goes, and I may have to carry it over into tomorrow. But we will see. The very first thing you're going to want to do for this recipe is take out your butter so that it can soften. And it also said to have the egg at room temperature, so you're going to want to take that out as well. You just need 1 egg, and for the butter, it is unsalted butter, and it is 10 tablespoons or 2/3 of a cup. So that's your first step. The other things that you're going to need for this recipe are a mixer. It can be a hand mixer or a stand mixer, a separate large bowl and a whisk, 3/4 of a cup of light or dark packed brown sugar, 2/3 of a cup of unsulfured molasses, and they were very specific about it being unsulfured. Now, I personally have no idea what that means because I don't really bake with molasses very often, but apparently it's important to the recipe that it be that specific type. Pure vanilla extract. You're also going to need 3.5 cups of all-purpose flour, and probably a little extra for when we do the rolling out of the dough. You're going to need baking soda, salt, ground ginger, ground cinnamon, ground allspice, and ground cloves. Now for later, you're going to need a rolling pin, cookie sheets, cookie cutters of your choice, plastic wrap, potentially parchment paper, we'll see. Then for later, for the decorating portion, it was suggested to use cookie icing. You could also make royal icing if you wanted to, but I'm trying to keep this beginner here. But cookie icing, however, must be the time of year because I could only find red cookie icing. There was no green cookie icing, and cookie icing was simply hard to come by. But I was able to find red. Then I got this green decorating icing, which I don't know if it's going to be the same or as easy, but we'll find out. Then I just got standard vanilla icing that I could mix colors with in case I want to do that as well. And then, of course, you can add whatever sprinkles or decorative things you want to it, but we'll get to that fun part later. We're going to want to measure out our brown sugar and molasses because those are some of the first ingredients that we'll be using. Because the first step is in our hand mixer to use the paddle attachment and beat the butter for 1 minute or until it's completely smooth and creamy. It says to beat it on medium. Then we add in the brown sugar and molasses and beat on medium-high speed until combined and creamy looking. Let's start there. Don't know if I mentioned, we do need 3/4 of a cup of the brown sugar and 2/3 cup of the molasses. I have to say, molasses does not smell great. Okay, I'd say that's smooth and creamy. So now to add the brown sugar and molasses. Molasses is also messy to work with. Sticky and messy, and could get everywhere. Just gonna make sure everything's getting not too stuck. Now we're going to add to that 1 teaspoon of the vanilla extract and our egg, and make sure that that mixes in with it as well. does say to scrape down the sides as needed and that the butter may separate, so good to know. Okay, that seems pretty good, I think. Alright, so now in our separate bowl, we're going to mix together our dry ingredients. Beginning first with 3½ cups of all-purpose flour leveled. And then a teaspoon of baking soda. Now I'm going to add ½ teaspoon of salt, 1 tablespoon of the ground ginger, 1 tablespoon of the ground cinnamon, ½ teaspoon of allspice, and ½ teaspoon of the ground cloves. Now we're going to whisk that all together. Now it says to put the mixer on low and slowly combine the dry ingredients to the wet ingredients until combined, and it says the dough will be slightly sticky. Okay, I think everything is pretty well combined now, but they weren't kidding when they said it's sticky. So far, so good. Wasn't too complicated to combine the ingredients. So the next step is to divide the cookie dough in half and then wrap it in plastic wrap and kind of flatten the plastic wrap so that it's in a disc shape. So let's see if I can divide it equally in half. Okay, I think I've got them divided pretty evenly in half. Might not be perfectly exact, but pretty close just from eyeballing it. So now I've got to cover them up and get them into that disc shape. Okay, here's my 2 wrapped up piles of cookie dough that are now going to chill in the fridge for 3 hours. The creator of the recipe leaves them overnight, but I don't have that kind of time. So I'm going to put them in for minimum 3 hours and check back with you once they've chilled. All right, now time for the baking portion of this video. It's been a little over 4 hours since I put the dough in the refrigerator to chill. So now I need to preheat the oven to 350 degrees Fahrenheit. Then you're going to want to get 2 to 3 baking sheets, and I'm just using 2 because I can't put more than 1 in the oven at a time, so I figure I can switch them out. And it said to line them with parchment paper, so I've done that already. Then we're going to take one of our packages of dough and roll it out, but first lay flour down on the counter so that it doesn't stick to the counter, and our rolling pin and anything that is coming in contact with the dough, because it could be sticky, so I'm gonna have to flour everything. And it says to roll it out to 1/4 inch thick and then cut out the pieces that we want, continually doing that until we've used up all of that dough and placing them onto our baking sheets. And then we're going to do it again with the second portion of dough. Now this is the part that I think could potentially be challenging for beginners and myself, but we will see. Know exactly how to tell it's 1/4 inch thick, plus as I'm rolling out the dough the sides are kind of cracking apart, so as I figured, it's not the easiest to work with, but I suppose it doesn't have to be perfect because we can always take the scrap pieces after and put them back together. So I have a variety of size gingerbreads here. For some reason I thought I had a girl one, but that must have been at my mom's house that I'm thinking of. So I've got 3 different gingerbread people, different sizes, and this recipe says it's supposed to make 24 4-inch cookies, so I'm gonna guess that's probably more toward the middle size, but I'm probably gonna try for this dough to make them all similar size, and then on the next batch I'll know a little bit better how it turned out and if I can adjust the sizing of things. So now I've got the first batch cut out. To use the extra dough, I did use my smaller one. It does say to cook for 9 to 10 minutes, but that if the cookie cutters are less than 4 inches, to cook for 8 minutes. So I'll probably cook the second pan for 8 minutes since those ones are smaller, and the original pan for 9 minutes, and see how that goes. First batch is done, or the first pile of dough, both pans are done baking, and now they are on cooling racks cooling, but from what I can tell they turned out good. I haven't tasted them, of course, but they kept their gingerbread shape and they seem to have cooked fine in the time that they suggested, so on to the next batch. All of the cookies are done baking, and it was an easier process than I was expecting. Now, I did forget to mention that this recipe is from Sally's Baking Addiction, and as I always do, I will link it down in the description box for you in case you want to make these cookies for yourself. But yeah, I thought it was going to be more challenging, but having followed the directions to a T, so far, so good. Now, I'm going to give them some time to cool before decorating, and I may not decorate every single one because I ended up with a lot more where I have varying sizes. But I will do some decorating, and I'm going to try to push myself to get it done tonight. It's 5:30 now, and I'm going to give them about an hour to cool, so 6:30 still should be early enough to decorate. But I am going to taste one now because the first batch will have cooled enough just to get the flavor before they're decorated and see how the cookie itself turned out. From that one I sampled, they seem to have turned out just how I wanted them to, because if you've watched Baking for Beginners with me before, you'll know I don't really like crunchy cookies. And I know gingerbread cookies tend to be more on the crunchy hard side, but I specifically looked for a recipe where they'd be a little bit softer. So these are a little bit more crisp and crunchy on the edges, but then when you get to the center, it is soft. So hopefully after they've sat for a while, over a few days, they'll still have that softness in the center, but good flavor. I think it turned out well. So I will check back with you in a bit for decorating. All right, I've got all my icing and sprinkles gathered together, and now it is time to decorate. This first one's going to be a little bit of an experiment, just getting used to how the cookie icing works and kind of playing to see how it goes. one came with a tip, but it's just round and open, so I'm gonna have to find my own piping tip to put on and hopefully it'll fit. I found a couple different types that I just had on hand and they fit, so we'll see how this works. Alright, not a fan of that attachment that I put on. I'll be honest, my decorating skills are, if there's something that's more than beginner, they're less than beginner. So beginner minus, because I am not very good at decorating. But I'm still having fun while doing it. And that's what counts, right? Right, well it took all day, but the cookies are finally done and decorated. They're not artistic masterpieces by any means, but I enjoyed myself and that's what counts. I didn't decorate all of them. I still have some over there undecorated because I could have been here another couple hours if I decorated them. Plus it was just kind of getting messy everywhere and I only wanted to do it for as long as I was having fun and enjoying it. And if I share them with people, sometimes people don't want them with all the frosting and sprinkles, so I'll have them that way. Or I could possibly decorate them at a later time. We will see. But now I'm going to taste one that does have icing on it, but probably one of the duds that I didn't like as much. This one is crunchy, so as I had feared, they might have hardened, or it could just depend on the cookie. Maybe some are softer and some aren't. I don't know. Now, I don't believe I've ever used that cookie icing, and it's definitely different consistency and texture than I was expecting, because it's much more liquidy than the other icing I had. So I don't know if it's super ideal for the decorating unless you're just going to use it to cover them completely. But yeah, that wasn't quite what I expected. But otherwise, as far as baking for beginners recipes go, I think this was a simple enough one, easier than I was anticipating when I started. The main thing with this one is just preparation and planning ahead with softening that butter and warming that egg, and then time. You really do need time for this. You need a full day, possibly 2 days if you want to split it up and chill the dough for longer. So that's the main thing that you need, but if you have that, I think it is a beginner-friendly recipe. I hope that you enjoyed this Christmas-themed baking for beginners and seeing me make gingerbread cookies. If you try this recipe out or try to make them for yourself, please let me know. I'd love to hear about it. Be sure to give this a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. Thank you so much for watching and supporting my channel. It really does mean a lot to me. And I'll talk to you soon. Bye!